want to thank everybody for being here. We like to Network in Action is new to Eastern Washington. We opened in Eastern Washington in July. We launched our virtual group, which is a nationwide group for business owners who want to network and do business virtually with clients nationwide. And then we launched in North Idaho as well. And so part of our commitment is just a community give back. And part of my heart is just really helping business owners grow. I believe that when business owners know better, they do better. And when I meet folks such like Robert, and we're talking about what they're up to and what they're creating, it makes me really excited to get content out and put it out for folks to just absorb. And in the shorter amount of time, the better, because we're all so busy. And so I just want to thank Robert for being here. Take a moment to connect with him on LinkedIn. If you're not following his content, both on LinkedIn and Facebook, he's putting out some really great content for small business owners. And I know that this can be a very scary topic, overwhelming, and a lot of people do not want to talk about this topic. They don't want to think about. I've been asking business owners since we started talking about planning this, Rob, what's your plan if something happens? And it's
Nothing.
like, and la 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 la. And I totally get it. Like, I get it. And let's just take some time to address those things now, because you had made a post the other day. Just start writing it down. Start somewhere. It's better than nowhere. And start thinking about these things so that you're prepared, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So Robert's got over 20 years experience in his field. Please do connect with him on the social media and LinkedIn. And with that, today we're going to be talking about managing risks, cybersecurity myths, protections, and actions. Robert's going to go through some slides and a conversation. Feel free. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. Type your questions in the chat. Raise your hand. This is meant to be interactive. And there is time at the end for questions as well. So if you have questions you want to get answered, please do know that there will be time for that. So Robert, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you have any issues, folks, go ahead and message me in the chat. I'll be monitoring everything and here in support of all of you.
All right. Well, thanks, Jessica, and good morning, everybody. And I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to speak to you on cybersecurity. I have made this a recent mission, and I'll lay out some of the reasons why it's become important to me in my presentation here. But I'd like to just start out by saying that technology is our bread and butter. Years ago when I got started in technology, I had a group of friends around me, and one of our phrases we actually liked to remind ourselves is, isn't it amazing to have an information business in the information age? And that's why this is so important. The landscape has changed a lot. We've now really gone global. It truly is a global marketplace, but our challenges also grow with that. And that's why my heart is for the small business owners. And I am going to try to address some of those concerns and questions, but I believe every small business owner has within them a scalable business that can grow. And it's a problem if in that growth, you attract the wrong audience and they end up taking it all away. So hopefully I can help, take away some of that fear today and some of that I'll do this later, and actually help you realize that now's the good time to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to, cover everything that a Fortune 100 company would want to cover. But if you start and you begin this continuous improvement project, things can get better, and you can get some sleep at night, knowing that your assets are protected against the unwanted attention of hackers and other threat actors out there. So just a little bit of my reason or why I'm here today. I have as said, 30, going on 35 years of experience in technology. My actual cybersecurity focus and interest goes all the way back though to 2013, when my biggest client was required by Experian to go through a cybersecurity audit. And this was literally, I had heard the term, I knew what was going on, and suddenly they were saying, before you can hook up to us, you need to be vetted that you are actually secure in your practices. And so this was an exposure to really big security audit. And the challenge of all of those things, we actually ended up at that time deciding that continuing to work with Experian wasn't worth it. So we just kind of took a pass, that we can go get the information from somebody else. We're not going to do this. Fast forward a few years, and my client was again faced with this, but now it's not just doing business with somebody, now it's protecting your business. And they were facing this question of, are we going to get cyber insurance? Can we get cyber insurance, and so on. And if you would just for a minute, take a moment in the chat. Is cyber insurance something you have thought about? We have car insurance. We have maybe business insurance if you have customers. May give us a quick input. Is cyber insurance on your agenda or in your list of services that you have for your business? Okay, so that's an important thing to consider, because cyber insurance is driving this market for cybersecurity. And the reason is that there was a lot of people that got cyber insurance riders on their business plan, business insurance or something like that. And it became kind of a Wild West. Everybody got the rider for it, but what were they doing? And so cyber insurance now is coming back and going, hey, we're not going to cover you if you don't fill out all of these forms and tell us that you have in fact been doing things that you should be doing. And so that's our growing challenge. Is it's not just us, but it's where we want to do business that is making this important. So my client, getting back to the list, 2021, my client actually completed a cyber
insurance. They're doing my seminar right now.
Completed a 27001 certification, which is a framework that I'll talk about a little bit later. And so now we're in the phases of working back with our customers, going, okay, we're now secured. We have these certification we can put up on the wall. And that led me to actually say, if I'm going to be putting my reputation out there, I need that certification as well. So just this past August, I went to ISC Squared and completed their certified in cybersecurity certification, which is a first step in a life of cybersecurity education and ongoing roles. So that's what I'm going to bring to you today with this. I'm also happy, to say that I also work, within my state with the Washington State Small Business Development Centers. And we've been running a series on cybersecurity that I'll talk about a little bit later, which is a great resource as well for those that are wanting to get their toe in the water with cybersecurity. So let me talk about the agenda. It's really one words: myths, protections, and actions. And that's our goal for you today is I want to address some myths, hopefully dispel them in a way that says it's a big world out there, but there are ways to address it. So we don't want to believe the myths, but we do have protections, and you can take some actions today to get started in that area. So, myths. What is a myth? Well, in my definition, it's just simply things we believe that just aren't so. And that's our challenge. You know, we tell ourselves stories just like the ancients. You know, the storm brewed up and the ship got capsized and things, and they would just say there was this god out there with a trident, he stirred up the waters and the ship sank. Well, back then they didn't have insurance. And so that was a disaster in their world. But today we also have, as business owners, we also have certain beliefs, or we have certain attitudes that are myths because of the nature of what's going on in the dark web. So let's take the first myth. I'm too small to be targeted. Well, that myth assumes a cause and effect relationship between someone having it out for us and actually making it their goal to get to us. And unfortunately, that's not what's going on. In the dark web, in that part of the internet that you know the threat actors operate in, they're running businesses too. And they have an alternate marketing plan. Their marketing plan is, let's find vulnerable systems out there and let's see what we can do with them. So, for instance, one of the most noted cyber attacks that happened in the last, say, 5 or 7 years was one that took down domain name servers on the East Coast. I mean, Netflix was knocked off, Amazon was knocked off the internet, and so on. And when they did the diagnosis of how this thing happened, the number one device, anyone guess what was the number one device that was used to instigate this attack against DNS servers? Wild guesses are fine in the chat. I'll give you a moment here. Number one device, mobile phones is a good guess. It was actually even more dumb than that. Actually, the attack started from baby monitors. Okay, so it's the device that people weren't looking at. They have a purpose, they have a need, and so they go out and they get this baby monitor and they set it up in the baby's room, and they turn it on, they hook it up to the internet, and then they go on about their lives, and they're just happy to be able to check in and see how their child is doing. But that device becomes an entrance point for an actor to come in and take control. And so they found a huge preponderance of baby monitors were used as weapons against the DNS provider. So I'm too small to be targeted is a myth. Anyone who has anything connected to the internet is a target that can be exploited unless you have something protecting you and some plan to respond. Okay, so how about another myth? Myth 2, I don't have anything of value. what would they go after me for? I mean, I do all my work online. I don't have my customer, um, you know, social security number. I don't have credit cards numbers or anything like that I store. Well, identity is important and access is important, and also research. So if they can get a hold of you, then they can learn about others, because we have email addresses, we have other forms of communications with people. And if they have access to those communications, then they can broadcast that out and see if they can hook somebody else. So one of my acquaintances, we experienced kind of a cyber attack, in that we had been having a conversation in email, and we had just included everybody's email on the conversation. And somebody had gotten into her email server and was able to monitor what was going on. And we suddenly got an email from her legitimate email address with all of us tagged on it. But it was a conversation that had ended about 5 weeks before. And suddenly there was this fresh email with new information and a link saying, here, just go here and check it out. But it was piggybacked on a conversation we had legitimately been having with each other. And so that right there wasn't after her, it was after everybody she knew, because they can use one actor or one target to then discover who else you communicate with. So we all have something of value, and what they want, they're, by the way, they're business owners, threat actors, the people on the dark web. They're not just out there to be evil. They're out there to make money, and they have the same equation you do. And we'll talk about that margin issue. Are you a valuable target? Hey, if the cost is less than the value they get, it's a positive margin. And finally, myth number 3, it's going to happen sometime. There's really, what can we do about it? It's a big bad world out there. There are bad actors. They're just going to, somewhere someday, my information is going to get leaked, and it's just going to happen. And the myth behind this one is one that I call, or I refer to as fatalism. And the problem with fatalism is that we don't do anything because something is going to happen. And the challenge is that when something happens, if we haven't built a plan, then the outcome can be worse than, having tried to mitigate, having protections in place that you immediately know, oops, something's wrong. Here's my action plan. 1, 2, 3, this is what I need to do. So we're constantly on the hook, so to speak, and it's tiring, and we want to just say it's not worth it. But being attacked, being hacked can take up your time, can take up your resources. And some statistics out there suggest that small businesses that are taken or receive, almost a majority of the attacks out there are actually against small business. When they're hit, they can quickly be overwhelmed with the costs involved in recovering and getting back into operational behavior. And many of them don't make it. They just find it easier to fold up and say, expense is too much. And so they just, quit business. So our challenge is we need to take action, because if we don't, you go through experiences like I have, where my identity's been stolen twice. And the first time I ignored it, and it eventually went away, but I carried it on my sorry, I'm going to draw a blank here, on my credit report for a long time. It wasn't me, but Verizon said it was. And so I didn't fight it, and eventually it dropped off. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, it happened again. This time it was T-Mobile. But this time I needed to do something about it because I was doing a financial transaction and they were questioning, why do you owe $4,000 to T-Mobile? I said, well, it's not me. And they said, well, you have to clean this up. So now I had to go to my Spokane police department and say, I need to file a report because T-Mobile's telling me I have to say it's not me. They said, well, we don't take your word this happened. And said Houston. They said, oh, well, we're not Houston, so you got to take care of it. So then I call Houston Police Department and I say, somebody in your city has taken my information and used it to open an account at T-Mobile. I need to file a report. And they say, are you a Houston resident? I said, no. I said, well, we don't do anything for people who aren't in Houston. So it took me hours to finally get somebody to listen to me so I could respond and get the work done I needed to. So these are the concerns I have for small business owners. We don't need this hassle. Okay, so I'm going to pause here at the moment. Any issues or questions there, Jessica? I should.
No, everything looks
Yes,
good in the chat.
okay.
Do you guys have any questions at this point about myths for Rob?
All
I'm
right.
shocked to hear that about the baby monitors, man.
Yeah. Yeah, well, anything connected to the internet, and by the way, the whole industry is called Internet of Things. Eventually, your refrigerator, your wash machine, all of these devices are going to be connected, and we'll be discovering in the next few years how to secure and protect your network and your environment from that.
Yeah.
So, recapping myths clarified. Myth 1 assumes attackers have to know you to target you. And the fact is, the dark web is adopting malware as a service. Literally, they are advertising on the dark web. If you have money and you want to put it down, we'll launch the attack, and anything you get back in profit or in value from your attack, split it with us and we'll call it good. Myth number 2 assumes that they want big scores. But again, profit as motivation means that any value that is greater than the cost it takes to get it is worthwhile. So why do we have so many spammy emails? Because it's so cheap to send an email. And if you get 0.1% of a response, you have positive ROI. So you need to assume that they're working on big scale here. And myth 3 is just fatalism. People take action every day to reduce risk. I'm going to guess that each of us on this call drives somewhere, sometime. My question is, do you put on your seatbelt buckle? Do you have dry insurance for your car? We take action, we do things to reduce risk, and that's what the call today is all about. Let's not sit, as this woman does, in the middle of the tracks waiting for the train. So the next theme here is protections. And I know it's maybe a little exhaustive to bring up COVID, but in working as I have over the last 3 or 4 months with cybersecurity, we've come up with this metaphor of PPE, personal protection equipment. And so what I'm going to talk about now is the PPE of cybersecurity in your business. And the first P in PPE is policy. A policy is a written document of intent. It's not an exhaustive discussion of all the things that could go wrong and everything you need to be doing and so on. It's just an intent saying, I want to get better. The important thing about policy is, though, if you're ever in a situation where somebody is going to question you, where they're going to audit you, this might be, in preparing for getting cyber insurance, or it might even be in an aftermath situation with a government official contacting you, a legal, person, a sheriff or somebody saying, okay, you just released all this data out to the world that you had. What were you doing to protect it? And when you have a policy, you can show them, you can share with them and say, here is what I had implemented as my day-to-day policies and practices. Then they know that you're taking this seriously. So it's a cycle. Write a policy, have it there to show when somebody asks, and then, revise and update it as you grow. The second P in PPE is procedure. And procedures are the step-by-step systems that you build into your business to accomplish what you intend to do by your policy. And so if you say you're going to update your computer with the latest patches and so on, then procedure is going to be a document you produce that says, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things I do once a month or once a week to make sure that I am doing this. And an auditor is going to want to see that you have a procedure to go along with your policy. Because if you scale, if your business grows beyond a solopreneur into a small business, into assistants and so on, they want to know that your intent gets carried on to those new workers, those new people in your business, because they can become liabilities to your business as well. So we have our policies, we have our procedures, but 49 to 51% of the cyber insurance policies out there that against which claims are made do not fully pay out because of the last leg. And that last leg is evidence. It's one thing to say you're going to do something. It's something else. It's another thing to actually have a plan of how you're going to do it. But it doesn't mean anything if somebody can't sit down and actually pull up and see examples of where it was actually done. Did those patches get installed? If you're a retail location and you say that you restrict access to your computer equipment from the general public walking into your storefront, how do we know that? How do we know that actually happened? And so you need to show that anyone who went beyond this point actually had to sign a log to indicate they were going into a secure area. And you have to have evidence to show the auditor that in fact you follow these procedures. Now, obviously, big companies have to do a lot of things, but even small companies need to figure out how to document the evidence that in fact they have been doing these practices. So that's why today that PPE is the metaphor I want to share with you. Is it's your personal protection equipment or evidence to make sure that you are doing what is best, for your business. And so that's the challenge that we have to take on. How do we have our policy? How do we have our procedures? and how do we have our evidence setting? So real quick in the chat, if you might, what is this example or this metaphor mean to you right now? Does this example make sense of how you're going to protect your business?
Well, I was taking some notes when you were talking just about, I actually started with like the middle P, like what am I actually already doing?
Mhm.
Because I haven't written it down, right? And then
Right.
the evidence portion. So anyway, it's like a very good for a place to start, like what needs to be in each section.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, start somewhere. So it's like, I'll just go to my drive and just start adding to it. So as I boost things over time and become more savvy, I'll just make that part of
I
my
can make that more.
things to do is to go into the Google Drive or wherever and update those 3 things. So, yeah,
Exactly. And that is my ultimate goal today. My intent today is to get that mindset started. That it's, I have some actions for you, and I think they're going to help you make that start. But if we can just all get to the point of saying, I'm going to start logging, I'm going to start writing down what I'm doing, and I'm start making better and better lists. That's why I like the phrase continuous improvement project.
yeah.
It's, get started and then continuously go back and devote time to getting better at what you're doing. Okay. Yeah, I like that, Kendall. Yeah, doing something is better than doing nothing, and that's
Mhm.
the commitment factor to all of that. Okay, so PPE, policy, procedure, and evidence. And evidence is going to be the way you protect your business. And you want those 3 protections to combine together to give you that shield from threat actors on the internet. Okay, so let's make this actionable. Let's say, where do we go from here? So I'm going to provide you today with 3 action steps, three things you can be looking for, doing, or trying in order to start this path. And then I have some things to tell you about that I'm doing to try to help a growing community I'd like to build around this area. But actions are going to be the cybersecurity steps you can take starting today in order to improve your resilience in business. And the first one is choosing a framework. Now, a framework is a recognized group of controls or practices that the industry has said, if you do these things, you are performing good cybersecurity. And those frameworks are often targeted to specific, business niche and what you do in them. And some of them are general and so on. So you have to pick one that actually meets your specific requirements. So I'm listing them in reverse order of what I think is the easiest approachable, continuous improvement. But I'm doing that because there are bigger ones out there you'll hear about, and you'll think, well, I'm not doing all of that. And that's okay, because it's an improvement project. So most common ones that we talk about a lot are NIST, and NIST is the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. It's the government arm it's the arm of our federal government that is supposed to give us best practices, what to do in these situations. And so they actually have 2 standards. The CSF is Cybersecurity Framework, and this is the one that they targeted early at all businesses of all sizes, so small businesses up to large businesses. And it's a fairly simple model that, it's just basically things like, how do you prepare? How do you detect? How do you recover? And so on. But then they got more detailed because they're big companies and they have large needs. And so they have the NIST 800 171 standard. This one is complex. It's not for small business, but it's good to understand it because some of the frameworks that are targeted at small businesses are actually taking NIST 800 and just slimming it down so it meets a more general public audience of this. So, the gold standards are probably on this list, the NIST 800 and the ISO 27001. Those are two gold standards. I noticed today Dr. Harvey joined us. He's likely, governed by HIPAA, I'm guessing, in that situation. And so HIPAA is another standard. And there's sometimes a misunderstanding about HIPAA because we hear about it when we deal with our doctors and we hear about it as medical practice. But within HIPAA is also an aspect of cybersecurity about making sure your devices are, protected. The one I'm going to talk about, in this group and ongoing is CMMC 2.0 level 1. This is the one that is now being touted for all businesses, especially those who ever have any business with government entities. And apologize for the background noise here. But the CMMC is a maturity model showing people to get better. I could turn that down. Is an ongoing cyber maturity model. And this is actually the work I'm doing, is presenting CMMC. So I'll have some offers for you about how to utilize that level of protection. The core idea, though, is choose a framework, understand that you're going somewhere in your business. Second action you can take is embracing education on these topics. I've listed out a few things here. I'm happy to converse with you on specific examples, but Baker Tilly as business consultants, and they host a nice set of webinars on cybersecurity. One I just sat through about 3 weeks ago was really interesting and informative about the role of people and procedures and systems in solving cybersecurity problems. CISA is the Cyber Infrastructure and Security Agency. This NIST sets standards, but the CISA is specifically focused on cyber issues, and they have their policy guide called Cyber Essentials for Small Business. Again, just another walkthrough, just say, are you doing these things? Hiscox, just learned about them. They're actually in the cyber insurance world. And Hiscox is providing a readiness score, which is basically they give you a questionnaire, you fill out your answers, and then they give you a nice kind of a chart, a targeting chart to show you where you need more work. Now, it's probably, if you're not into cybersecurity, it's probably a little bit deep in terms of the questions they're asking and so on, but answer the best you can. And then another resource I'd recommend is my partners, the Washington Small Business Development Centers, which are a part of the Small Business Administration. They're the state-based organization. Those of you in Washington State, this is your free resource to get help on a lot of these issues. So it's helpful to, get to know them. They, besides Other things they can do for you, they have a cybersecurity program. And if you sign up for it, you're going to see me again because I'm the subject matter expert for this series. So action 2 is embrace the education. When you see something, read it, listen to it. It doesn't have to make sense right now. There's a lot of subjects I get into. It takes me 6 months or a year before I have enough information to where I start going, oh, that's what they were talking about. Now I get it. But open yourself up and try some things. And then finally, the other action is ask for help. Find your digital communities, find your business groups that you're in, and social media, and just look for places to be able to ask questions. In your area, in your neighborhood, or maybe even remote, you might find managed service providers. This is a business or an industry I'm in, where I actually work with my customers to protect and maintain their equipment, their systems where they're at. And so managed service providers can now do things remote because of the cloud. And it don't have to have the local geek on the corner, coming into your place of business to do this work. They can schedule it and do it when you're not using your equipment. And another suggestion that I just kind of quickly researched is look for a business technology coach. And I'm using a very careful term here. I'm not saying go get a consultant to come in and tell you what you need to do. Find a coach who will make recommendations. This is what we see in the industry. This is what, generally, they're not necessarily selling you a solution. They're helping you identify the problem that you have and what a solution would look like and what that gap is. And, so what kind of a solution you need. Because I understand not everyone is in a place to hire an IT department. But there are answers. I'm coaching one particular business owner right now. She'd like to use my services. She's not there. So we're talking about alternatives, what she can do right now to protect herself. And then when she grows, she knows the next step she wants to take. So let me pause here. Just kind of slipped a little bit beyond my goal deadline, but I want to give you a moment to respond on actions. Do these actions make sense? Is there any question about the terminology I've used here? Nothing so far. Okay.
I've taken a few actions just based on this while we've been on the call, getting organized. Like, okay, all right, I can do this. All right.
What we need to do. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Super helpful.
Okay. Well, so let me wrap this up and get to a Q&A opportunity and give you some time to think about it. But if you're ready to start, if what I've said today has sparked, some interest, here's 3 ways I can help. I have a strategy call, 30-minute session that I'm happy to extend to you. Just say, you want to go back through this, you want to refine it down to your particular needs. I also have published a cybersecurity planning page that I will be updating. On that page right now, I have a questionnaire of where you're at in your cybersecurity right now. And that will help you identify where your gaps are and where you may need to go next. A second thing is I'm going to be publishing a book in the next 30 days called something around the title Cybersecurity 101, your small business owner guide to better cybersecurity. And that book, I am inviting you to sign up for the launch announcements. So It'll be on Amazon for, $5. It's just a guide. And remember, I talked about the CMMC. This book is a written version of the CMMC, written from the perspective of you sitting down and writing your first cyber policy. And so it gives you a step-by-step. What do you need to write about? What do you need to put in there? And guide you down that road. And I'm planning on following up with an online course product that will be writing your first cybersecurity plan in 90 minutes. And again, takes you through these questions and does it in a way that you come away with a document that is your first thing. So I'd encourage you to stay in touch with me, join my list so I can let you know when these things become available. And if you're curious, I mentioned dark web today and so on. If you have any curiosity about that in your business and your domain, I'm offering a free complimentary dark web compromise report. I can actually search for your specific email address, or if you own a domain, I can search your domain and find whether or not your information has already been leaked out onto the dark web, and therefore you are theoretically a target because you're being culled and picked up on lists of potential targets to send their emails to, or to attempt to social engineer your life. So those are the options that I have for you today. And I appreciate your time. We have 10 minutes left in the hour, and I'm ready.
Yeah, I dropped those links in the chat for you guys. So when I follow up, I will include a copy of the chat, but they're live links there right now if you want to click on them. I see you have a little self-assessment there, which is cool. I'm going to work through that and kind of see where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And I would highly recommend the dark web search. Rob did that for me a while back, and so really helpful. What questions do you guys have for Rob?
Okay, certainly, Dr. Harvey. So a managed service provider is an IT guy. It's my IT guy. The difference is that we use agents or automated programs that we install on your computer to issue routine maintenance, things like, so for instance, I talked about applying patches to your computer. Well, with my customers, when they sign up for my service, what I do is I install my software on their system, and then I can go to my desk or my web console and I can say, okay, Dr. Loomstein's computer's up for this patch, this patch, this patch. Okay, we're going to schedule it and it's going to install tonight. And then we'll schedule a reboot. And so tomorrow morning, when you get up and you sit down to go to work, your computer has been patched and is now fully compliant. And there are a lot of services. You think of antivirus, you think of web filters and so on. These are typically services that are built into a bundle. So we give you, the cybersecurity, antivirus, web filtering, patch management. The things that you'll discover in the CMMC are number one, routines. What do you do? And the trade-off is that you don't have to now schedule your time to do them. We'll schedule them to be automated so that they're taking place. And you can document and say, these things are being done. And we make sure that you're, truthful in that. We give you the evidence. In fact, speaking of evidence, my customers get a monthly report of all the activity that they're protected and that these changes or things have been done on their system.
You know, this is great, Rob. I'm looking at the assessment and it's like, if you're struggling with where to start, it's like, do you have something written down of what you're going to do if your device is stolen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I lost
Right.
my phone at a firm at Green Bluff 2 weeks ago and didn't notice for like an hour.
Right.
And
But
so
it's
the
your plan.
panic, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
panic that ensued. And of course I don't have, like, you know, I definitely don't have it written down. I mean, I know what I would do, but like, that's a good place to start. Like, what would I do if any of these devices? I would definitely recommend this self-assessment because it gets you thinking about all the things that are compromised and all of your devices that you're at risk for. And then, you know, an account is fraudulent opened in your name. What are you going to do? What are your steps? Because this happens pretty regularly, that kind of stuff, you know,
Right.
that once in your life, you're going to lose your phone or you're going to have an account that's not yours, you know? So this is really great. Highly recommend doing this self-assessment, guys.
And then follow-up question from Dr. Loomstein. How are managed services paid for? They're typically done, they can be done as a monthly, you know, as a monthly just ongoing subscription charge, or in my case, I offer both monthly subscription and a yearly package for, you know, 12 months for the price of 10, you know, and things. And so it's either, you know, pay on an annual basis or on a monthly as pay as you go offer.
And how does that look like, Rob? Like they should set up a strategy call with you and then you guys kind of come up with a game plan. Do you get together?
Yeah.
Like, how does that look?
I would say that's important to do. The strategy call gives me a chance to help understand your scenario and what that you know, value is that you are looking for to help advance your business. And then it also develops, you know, when I got into this business and I was talking to my friends about it, one of my friends kept saying, you realize that you're asking your friends to do this and you look just like a hacker, right? You know, you're going to install software on their computer and you're going to do things when they're not using it and so on. And I said, that's true. Trust is the most important thing. And so that contact with me, we get a chance to develop that relationship, you know, as the value there. In terms of the charge, you can find this on my site. Right now, I'm doing a program of $50 per month for a single computer charge. And in the industry, I will fully confess that I am on the low range, but I do so because I'm looking at small business owners and I'm counting on developing a relationship. That is, I can't do it all for you because especially if I'm remote, I can't be there if something goes wrong in a hard drive, but I can give you advance notice and I can tell you this issue is coming up. You need to be prepared, and maybe you'll have to go to Geek Squad at Best Buy or you know, somebody local for that. But at least you're not caught off guard by something happening. You get up in the morning and your computer doesn't turn on. We'll probably have identified something has been going on and we'll get it addressed before it becomes a crisis.
That's great. That's really awesome.
Okay. All
Do you
right.
guys have any other questions? So set up your strategy calls. Yeah, I'm just double checking the chat to make sure I didn't miss
Right.
anything.
I think I've
Set
answered
up your
everything there.
strategy calls with Rob. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rob, so much.
You're welcome.
for giving us this information and being such a contribution to us as small business owners. And yeah, I appreciate you. If there's nothing else,
All right.
yeah.
Have a
Thank
good
you,
rest of your
everybody,
day,
for coming
everyone.
and spending some time
Yeah.
with us this morning devoted to your business.
Okay. Bye.
Have a great week, everyone.